This is the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape. I am your show host, Rob, and leading off with wine and technology, we have a brilliant returning guest to this show. He is talking about AI and restaurants and how this is disrupting the marketplace. Anytime you have some type of paradigm shift, whether it be a war, in this case, a pandemic, and now a pandemic and a war, technology can disrupt, and those that sit on the right end of it sit on a gold mine of opportunity. Jerry Abiog, how are you, buddy? Great to have you back.
Rob, man. Great to see you again. It's been 2 years?
Yeah,
since I was on your podcast, and yeah, you're right. We're experiencing a lot of disruption right now. First, the pandemic. Now we got a war, right? Who knows? We may have the pandemic 2.0 again here shortly. So you're absolutely right. You got to be prepared, and one of those ways is implementing technologies, and in this case, AI.
yeah, and you know, what a great segment to come back to. I've been off a little bit. I've had a couple monologues on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, make sure to subscribe to the Drunken Grape YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell to all when you do, and plug into the Virtual Happy Hour Experience playlist. Almost each and every week, we feature extraordinary people. We have extraordinary drinks with extraordinary people, just like Jerry here on the set from Standard Insights IO, a company that he co-founded. Now, Jerry, you are dead right. Technology is a great disrupting tool. I mean, think about when the wheel was invented. Think about the printing press, what that did. Think about what the World Wide Web and the internet has done. And now artificial intelligence making its way into standard businesses. Tell us, how did you get started on this journey? Because it's really a very fascinating one.
Yeah, so it was roughly 4 years ago. Well, let's peel that. I've actually worked with AI and machine learning going back 8 or so years ago. But at that time, it wasn't yet readily accepted. And the last software company I worked for, we experienced a lot of failures. Mainly, it wasn't really so much the technology, but maybe it was the messaging. And we were making it hard for people to use. And it really wasn't solving our potential clients' business problems. So fast forward, going back 3-4 years ago, through serendipitous events, I met my future co-founders. So we revamped things from the failures I've learned from the last startup. And starting off, it was kind of tough, man. I'm not going to lie to you. When we first started Standard Insights 3-4 years ago, when you presented artificial intelligence, people got mad. They're saying, "Hey, you're going to take my job. You're going to take my job away." I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. I flew out to Denver, Colorado, through a trade show, was shaking people's hands, and people got mad. They're, "Hey, you're taking away my job." But over time, people have begun to realize that technologies like artificial intelligence could actually enhance your business processes and procedures. And when I was on your show 2 years ago, people were in a different mindset. We were still scared of this thing called COVID. And so we were approaching it from a different lens. I think at that time we were talking about how AI can help you, sell more wine with contactless payments, contactless ordering platforms. So that was 2 years ago. Now, I don't know if it is in Canada, but I know in the U.S., we are experiencing tremendous labor shortage. Not only with labor shortages, but inflation is gone through the roof. You got last summer, they came up with, hey, it was transitory. And then the next line of logic was, hey, big businesses are raising prices, which, the average inflation rates is right around 2% each year.
That's right.
But if with that logic, then why didn't these businesses raise their prices and rates all along. And then now the saying is the war in Ukraine. So whatever logic you subscribe to, businesses are suffering and people are suffering. So I'm sure it's the same way in Canada. But life goes on. You've got to march forward. You can't hunker down and be scared. And one of the ways that we've adapted is now that this AI can help mitigate inflation and help you better manage your resources with, AI-driven applications.
Yeah, because absolutely one of the big killers is time to do things, the time to process. I started delving into the Six Sigma foundations. It's all about process management. AI definitely falls into that bracket. If it takes you a day to retrieve an order as opposed to an hour or in even 10 minutes, what happens to your business? What's the variance in cost and what's the variance in profitability there? I mean, these are metrics that are mathematical. They are not deceitful. They're factual.
Right.
Like currency printing, we're talking in the green room, whether, I love to hear from people on the far left. I'm very much a centrist myself. I do believe in social progress and change, but I do believe in sound economics because you got to pay for the social progress and change. But if you start printing money recklessly, it's going to drive prices up. And this was exactly what our two governments have done in Canada and the United States. All you have to do is take a look at all the currency released. Now, trying to blame businesses on hiking prices, they only hike prices that the government passes on to them, they pass on to you. And the beauty of something like this, the way I see it, is if you can flatten and trim down time, you store data, you remember what people order, you recognize them when they come into your system, particularly restaurants. And I would invite large chain corporations and large chain entities to reach out to Jerry as well in Standard Insights IO, because this is brilliant. It's going to collapse your costs. And what this does for the consumer is it keeps prices somewhat reasonable when everything else is going crazy because you've trimmed down your cost. And that can be passed on to the consumer too. And that's where I see AI doing beautiful and terrific things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Rob. So, like, given an example of one of our clients. So, imagine you own a restaurant, and say you may need a staff of 10 people to run it. And let's just say 10 people to run it. And we know that wages are climbing, right? People are clamoring for higher wages, and some workers have a right to do that. But for example, assuming that you got a staff of 10 people right now, 3 have left to quit because you're not paying them, enough. But the current people that are left over, the 7, they're making only $15 an hour, and they're clamoring for 20. And the 3 people that you're looking to hire to fill that gap, they're wanting, $20 an hour, right? So the people you have left are making 15. You're bringing in new people that won't work for you unless you're paying them $20 an hour. So you got to take those people that are making 15, and that's going up to $20 an hour. That's a 33% increase.
Right.
Now you're dealing with wage inflation. You're dealing with inflation with other commodities, with supply chain, with everything involved. So with artificial intelligence in an AI-driven ordering app that's a lot smarter, you may not need to staff a restaurant with 10 people. You may only need to staff it with 3 or 4. And with those 3 or 4, you can pay them the $20 an hour. So now if you're working, Rob, for my restaurant or our client's restaurant, you're not going to get paid 15. You're going to get paid 20. But now the shortfall with the other workers that you're missing, it can be taken care of with technology, which is going to come in at a lower cost than labor. So while we can't stop prices from rising, you can at least mitigate it a little bit.
Well, exactly. And, that's a brilliant comparison. That's a brilliant breakdown that you just stated. Also, the fact is, if you got 3 or 4 workers left out of 10, you might even have room to enhance benefits too. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can really do to enhance the whole picture. Somebody now covered for a bit of medical, dental, optical,
Exactly.
prescription drugs. You pay them $20 an hour. They're a hell of a lot happier. The tools are a lot more efficient. You minimize the labor shortage because it is real, it is brutal. A lot of people simply don't want to go back to work, which is kind of sad. But that's the world we live in. And this is exactly why your technology is needed. And on that note, Jerry, a toast to the audience and you, the happy hour, brother. I know it's a little early for you to be drinking. This is a great wine. This is a Saint-Emilion Grand Cru from Bordeaux. It is Right Bank. It is almost all Merlot, which is a thick-skinned dark grape, along with Cabernet Franc. The Bordelais mastered blending and the blending formula, because these grapes grow up perhaps the northernmost reaches of viticulture. That is changing a bit with climate change, but wonderful notes of dark cherry in here. You get some restrained the notes. You get some oak. You get black tea. There's definitely some complexity going on in this glass. There's some nice acidity. Beautiful wine. This would go really well with things like braised beef. I highly invite you to grab a bottle of this. You know, it is a happy hour show, so we do have to talk a bit about a little product here on the set. But on that note, I'm also going to bring up your company on a screen share here, because people need to see this. And, you know, people need to see what's going on here. We're going to bring up the share. And there we are. So #1 consumer engagement platform, Standard Insights IO. Tell your customer what to do next, improving the customer experience, using AI to enhance things. If you're a techie, this is awesome for you. If you're not, get involved in technology, because technology is the way. It is the future. And of course, this is a pretty simple site to navigate. It's got the homepage, talks about the company itself, products, partners, a blog. You can book a demo. Jerry is 100% right. What are you doing to increase the competitiveness of your business? If you can increase the amount of orders you take in a day and drastically decrease your ordering time, what do you think happens to your revenue? Especially coming out of the hells of the pandemic. You know, there was a lot of lockdowns and shutdowns, tons of disruption. This technology is absolutely brilliant. This is what you want to have to enhance in your marketplace. I mean, you know, Jerry, talk to us a bit about some of the other side benefits that you've experienced with some of your clients, and how you've really seen this disruption really positively enhance their ROI.
Yeah, man, you know, everyone likes to talk about, hey, Rob, my company or my consulting company or my software will help drive sales. And everyone talks about that. And we're no different. But really what I like to talk about is, you know, what can happen if you don't implement technologies, the loss that your business could possibly experience. So I like to break it down. What's going to hurt Rob more? So if you have $100 in your wallet right now, what's going to hurt you more? If I give you $100, like, okay, that's great. But what if I take away the $100? That's going to hurt you more, me taking away $100 from you, than me giving you additional $100. And we've seen it throughout time where businesses that fail to implement technologies have gone belly up. We're looking at Sears, Kmart, shut their doors down. Blockbuster. So we've got these big name companies that were too big to fail that have failed to because of lack of technical implementations.
Yeah.
So going forward to when we first started Standard Insights 3-4 years ago, AI has we've seen a democratization of AI, meaning that the average small to mid-sized business can now afford solutions like ours. So at once it was only reserved for the Fortune 100, Fortune 50. Now prices have come down to where businesses can now take advantage of it. Right.
Wow.
And we've seen that across the board and across the different verticals. So I know we were chatting in the green room. 2 years ago we were talking about restaurants and in wine shops, and now we're doing stuff in cannabis.
Yeah, so talk to us about the cannabis journey, because that is a massive market. I mean, here in Canada, I can't remember the tally, but it's like a $43 billion a year industry. It is only growing. It is not slowing down. More and more governments are going to legalize this. So talk to us a bit about cannabis, because, for all the weed smokers out there and all those that enjoy their edibles, gummies, a lot of this is people just like the pleasure of it. It's a clean buzz. On top of it, it can be used for medicinal purposes as well. I mean,
Yeah.
there is no known sources of cancer linked to cannabis in history. That is a medical fact. And when I tell a doctor that, some of them do go, well, yet. But the thing is, how long have we had it? So, how long has it been around? Forever. So talk to us a bit about the cannabis journey. That's cool.
Rob. So when I was on your show 2 years ago, we weren't even in that vertical, but it was shortly after we started to delve into it. And times are changing, right? It's legal there. It's hopefully it'll be federally legal here in the U.S. soon. It's legal in many, many states, in the majority of the states, either recreational or medical. But the attitudes around that are changing. I think we're the same age. We're 50, and we grew up in the war on drugs. But now, to your point, man, there's a lot of money to be had. In fact, right now, I can't name the client. We're in an NDA, but we're working with a former NBA player, where they own a delivery company, cannabis delivery company, where we're helping them create an AI-driven delivery platform that can present not only Rob and Jared their favorite products, but their favorite products where they're located. So now we're breaking things down by zip code and geolocation. So number one, and number two, we're doing inventory level predictions. So that's something that we're in the process of doing right now. So, same principle applies to what we talked about a few years ago with wines and restaurants, being able to target the right person with the right product at the right time. And, why is that important? Well, it improves customer experience, prevents customer indecision, and tells what the customer to do next. The end result, if you're becoming, as a business, cannabis, restaurant, wine shop, data-driven, you'll experience both top and bottom line growth.
Yeah, and just a couple things there. Like, think about it. I got this Chateau Papineau 2018 Saint Emilion Grand Cru, retails for about $32 a bottle. You're a wine shop. I come along, I buy that bottle. Well, you log in my phone number, my details. Now you have me on file, my email address, and you punch in preference, Saint Emilion Grand Cru. Then I come in the next week, buy a Riesling, I buy a Rioja. This all goes into the listing. So when the order comes out, AI automatically calculates it with bots, I imagine, and boom, it has my profile, exactly what I order. You call me up and say, hey, Rob, do you want another bottle of that Chateau Papineau or Chateau Pepot Grand Cru from Saint Emilion? And I'm like, yes, of course, Jerry. Well, think about that conversation and how quick that is as compared to, what would you like to have? What's your preferences? Oh, that's right. You're into Bordeaux, Right Bank wines. And then you start going through a catalog, and that would be the old way of doing it. Our phone call just went from about 20 seconds to literally 10 minutes. Now, if you're doing that every day, day in and day out, how many more customers can you traffic with a call center, for instance, on short calls as opposed to long calls? And what does that do to your revenue base based on AI being implemented?
And especially with the labor shortage, here in my area in Atlanta, I mean, businesses are busy, right? You've been locked down for 2 years, and every time you go out to a restaurant, it's crowded. You take that into labor shortage, people can't find staff anywhere, whether you're the low-wage workers or the high-wage workers, everywhere in the middle, you just can't find workers. So with AI, it can help mitigate that. It doesn't matter if to your wine shop example or a cannabis dispensary example. I mean, if you're a wine shop or a cannabis dispensary, and let's say for argument's sake, you've got 500 products, that you offer, and maybe in your point of sale, there may be 20,000, purchase transactions. You have 8,000 customers. And you may have the best employees in the world, that friendly and all that, but realistically, Rob, I could be the friendliest guy, customer service guy, but if you come into my shop, to my wine shop or dispensary, how quickly can I process all that information? Oh, that's Rob. He's predicted to buy XYZ, right? So they may, but that's a lot of information for one person to process.
Yeah.
20,000 plus purchase orders.
Yeah, and what you could even do with AI solutions is you could batch them too. So if I'm a cannabis shop, and you know that I like Purple Kush or some type of Purple Haze, sativa related, because it's really indica or sativa or some type of hybrid or blend thereof in the cannabis world. And I also like my Saint Emilion Grand Cru. Well, all of a sudden, you've got the Purple Kush arriving to my house with my bottle of wine. So both shops benefit, and it can link them together in a system that you could also reduce the costs if the cost is a little too great for them to implement it individually. So you got massive benefits here. It's just like what you mentioned with Kmart and Sears. What slaughtered them was just-in-time inventory. I remember studying this in university and commerce class in the 90s. Walmart came along and disrupted it. What they would do is and this is where AI is going to be ever more brilliant, take just-in-time inventory and put it on steroids with supply shortages. Well, hell, now I just can get the product just in time. I can source it right away, and I can get it without carrying any inventory.
Right.
And are you seeing that application really starting to explode too?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken a while, right? It's really, when businesses buy our platform or any platform, they really have to experience tremendous amount of pain. And maybe for a while there, they could get away, they could take a Band-Aid approach. But now it's like the dam's breaking, they can't find workers, and they've got to do something. So now that's where we're capitalizing on that, on those pain points right now, namely with the labor shortage. All right?
Yeah.
Because maybe in the past, hey, having an AI-driven tool, it was a cool to have, but now it's becoming, a must-have with everything that's going on, around the world today. Inflation and maybe a war.
Yeah, and we're going to wrap this show up on that note. You're 100% right. Jerry, I've got your LinkedIn profile here. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to reach out to him on this platform. If you're a restaurateur, if you're in the cannabis trade now, you're a wine shop, you're a retailer, I mean, this solution solves it all. It's going to solve a lot of your headaches with supply chain management. It's going to knock out your labor shortage issues considerably. It'll also enhance the employee experience. You may be able to give them a pay raise, added benefits. This is all part of retention as well as the client experience remains not only uninterrupted, it gets enhanced. So, Jerry, where else can they find you outside of LinkedIn? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, standardinsights.io, all spelled out. You got my LinkedIn, or they can shoot me an email. It's Jerry, Jerry, at standardinsights.io, and we can set up a conversation to see if there's a mutual fit.
That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a terrific segment. Sorry about the beeping there. I think it was from the LinkedIn page being open and somebody trying to message me. But technology is disrupting the marketplace, much like NFTs are disrupting the marketplace too for certificates of authenticity, particularly into high-end producers in the wine, spirits, and beer world, art collectors, digital collectors, sports memorabilia. This is disrupting everything the same way. Listen, you've been a tremendous guest, Jerry. Thank you for being on the show. Cheers to you. And ladies and gentlemen, whatever you decide to do, have a terrific day. This is Rob and Jerry from The Drunken Crate.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.